From Super League to Olympic distance to age group world records to Kona. Go longer with the right fuel at the right time with S-Fuels.
E-L-O-H-A, a little aloha in our day. Spread a little aloha around the world. At breakfast with Bob.
Thank you, Poncho Man. Welcome, everybody. Breakfast with Bob, our not quite Kona edition. My name is Bob Babbitt. We are brought to you by Masters Spas, S-Fuels Go Longer, Hoka Let's Fly, Form Smart Swim Goggles, Zoot, the original triathlon brand, Premium Plus Sports, Quintana Roo, Mission Pacific Hotel, where we'll be for 70.3 Oceanside, and of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation. In our first 30 years, we've now raised $147 million to keep challenged athletes in the game of life through sport. Our next guest, I got to meet her watching her win her first ever triathlon. Colleen Quigley, 2016 Olympian in steeplechase. Colleen, how are you?
Hey, Bob, I'm good. Thanks for that intro.
I love steeple. All my years of Competitor Magazine and Competitor Radio, I remember having a guy named Tom Hunt, American record holder at 10,000 meters and a steeplechaser as well, and asking him, what is it about steeple? He goes, the thing with steeple is, in other things, you sort of fade a little bit. With steeple, 1 second you feel you're on top of the world, next second there's a piano on your back. It happens like in a second. True?
It's true. I was just talking about this with someone the other day about the difference between like a 5K and a steeple. And I've only run like really one hard, fast 5K because I don't like the shorter the better. I ran 15:10 in 2020 during like COVID summer. We did like a time trial thing around 15:10. And I just remember like after about the first mile, it started hurting bad. And I was like, oh no, like I have a long ways to go. And I'm just going to be like struggle busing the next 2 miles, which I did. And it was just funny to me because if you get, a third of the like 1K into the steeple and you feel like, oh God, I'm in the pain cave, like bad, you won't finish. You're not gonna make it over the barriers. You can't redline that early in a steeple just because you have these stationary objects that you are going to jump over. Like in the water, like you just can't. It's a very like you have to be a little bit more careful when you have these things, these barriers in your way. And yeah, you can go from like I'm okay to like I am not okay. Very quickly. So yeah, it's a fine line for sure.
What's the some of the worst things you've seen in the pit? Because as when we're covering steeple, everybody's at the pit, right? Because that's where the carnage happens. That's where I've seen people end up on their back, people jumping on them with their spikes and leaving dents in them. That's a scary thing.
Yeah, well, the thing with the steeple is that you don't have your own lane the way that you do in like the 400 hurdles. And that's a really hard event, like not to take anything away from the 400 hurdles. That is a brutal event. But those athletes are like counting steps between hurdles. They know exactly what leg is going to come up. It's a very calculated, event. But with the steeple, like you don't have your own lane. It's just free for all, right? So you can't see any like the barrier at all. And you just, whenever the person in front of you jumps, you jump. And it's a little scary, but it's interesting. I actually used some of that experience in Tritonman, my first triathlon, because I was really freaked out about the open water swim.
Yes.
That swimming is just like not my strong suit. It's not what my background is. And so like the thought of just like swimming in water where I can't see anything, like it's totally dark and they're just splashing everywhere and people kicking you in the face and hitting you and dragging you under on purpose or on accident. You don't know, you don't even know.
Yeah.
And I was just like freaking out about that. And then so I was trying to draw from my steeple experience and be like, it's like the steeplechase. Like you're, especially in that first like few laps, everyone's jostling. You're trying to find your spot in the crowd. You got people on your left and on your right and in front of you. And then the herd coming, right? And you know they're coming, but you can't quite see them between all the people. So you're just kind of blind. They jump, you jump. And there's like a little bit of trust going on there. And you just have to be able to like, if you can move like a half a, a hair this way, maybe I can see through their shoulders and get a better view. And you just keep going. Like if you have a bad hurdle, it's behind you, just keep moving forward. And I was really trying to use that in the swim, and just stay calm. People, I got kicked in the face, no problem, keep going. And it kind of works.
It's armed combat. The swim is armed combat. It's like no autopsy, no foul. You can do whatever the hell you want out there. And it was 55 degrees. And you guys are swimming, basically, the sun has just come up. It's dark.
Yeah. It was dark. And yeah, I realized I'm not very good at at being cold. Like my extremities get cold easily. So even just warming up, they allowed us to warm up in the bay, in Mission Bay in San Diego. And when I got out after the warm up, I was like, well, I think I just did the opposite of a warm up.
You're freezing.
Yeah. And my hands, by the time I was out there and started the race, I couldn't like even straighten my fingers all the way. Like my hands were so cold that like my fingers were like this. And I felt like I was like clawing the water, like just, I didn't feel like I had a paddle at all. It was like a sieve, and the water was just like, so yeah, I mean, there's always challenges, right? But there was no waves. That was really, I was happy about that. I didn't have to get through a break. And there was no diving in. We did like a treading water start, and then you just, kind of start kicking and go. So
the other thing about those type of early morning races, when the water's 55, your feet are so numb. When you get, when did you feel your feet before you started the run? Because usually they're like bricks during the bike ride.
I was nervous about that too, because the bike, your shoes on the bike are meant to like, they're not warm. They're holding them for a reason. Yeah. But that means they're not warm. And so I was like, how am I gonna figure that out? So I got some of those like neoprene shoe covers.
Yep.
And I was I just got them like the day before the race, because I was thinking like maybe I could use these. But then when I tried them, I like did a test run of like getting my feet, doing my like flying mount with those neoprene things on, and I couldn't get my feet in them because the shoe covers like kept my shoe opening closed basically. And so I was like, all right, well, that's not going to work. And so I ditched those, and I just like hoped for the best. And I actually don't think my feet warmed up okay. I was fine. The bike was really sunny. It was windy, but pretty sunny. And I felt like I was working hard enough and focusing so much on, what I was doing, that I didn't really notice my feet were cold. So that worked out okay.
When did you start in steeple? You're from St. Louis, and I'm sure you ran track in high school. Was steeple something that was pointed out to you, or something you chose on your own? It seems like with a lot of the folks I've talked to with steeples, they're like, let's move you to steeplechase.
Right.
Almost like, let's move you to right field.
Exactly. Yeah. And for many years, that definitely, the steeple was, okay, you're not quite fast enough for the 5K. You're not quite strong enough for the 5K. You're not quite fast enough for the 1500. Like, let's see if you can jump over some stuff, and we'll throw you in the steeplechase. And interestingly enough, my coach, I went to Florida State University, and my coach, Karen Harvey, used to hold the women's world record in the steeplechase, and she ran it was like 10:20 or something. I ran 10:13 the very first time I ever steepled. So
wow.
That wasn't like the fastest time anyone had ever like Jenny Simpson and Emma Coburn, all these people were already like, they had run faster than that and stuff. So it wasn't amazing, but that just goes to show you how quickly the events improved. And she was my coach, and she wasn't even that old. She was like 40 something. And, she was still like very active and stuff, but she had held the world record like not that long ago. So the event was just getting better and better and more competitive every year. And then, I think by the time I got to college, it was like people were choosing the steeplechase because they wanted to do the steeplechase, not because they couldn't cut it in other events. And then, it really started getting really competitive. And I think we've seen some of that in triathlon too, where like, instead of choosing triathlon because you weren't quite good enough to be a runner or weren't quite good enough to be a swimmer and figured out how to bike, and so we'll throw you in the triathlon. Like, people are choosing to do the triathlon because they want to do the triathlon as their first choice,
Yes.
not as their second choice. And when soon as that starts happening, then the competition level just escalates rapidly. So the steeple has a similarity there too, I would say. So to answer your question, I didn't start doing it until college. In high school, it's not very common for younger kids to do the steeple, just because, like I said before, these are stationary objects. They're not sprint hurdles that if you hit them, they topple over. If you hit the hurdle, you topple over. So there's like a little bit more risk involved. They're 30 inches for women, 36 inches tall for men. And when you're in high school, you're typically a little bit shorter, you're still growing. And so that 30 inches can be more intimidating. And then, of course, you have the water barrier and just more like liability. I'm sure schools like don't want to take out extra insurance for that. So just like oftentimes you don't always see the pole vault available in high school because it's a little bit more risky. So but I didn't do it until college. And luckily I have an older brother who was able to kind of show me the ropes because he went to University of Missouri at Mizzou. And he did the steeple and the 5K in college. And so I saw him doing the event. And when my college coach, I signed on to go to Florida State University, and she said, I want you to come to Florida State. I want you to run the steeple for me. I was like, well, I still was surprised, and I didn't really I'd never heard of it before. So I was like, I don't know. But at least I saw my older brother had done that. And so I had some kind of example to look at, and I knew what it was and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, she taught me how to hurdle her, and Coach Karen Harvey and Coach Terry Long taught me how to jump over hurdles my freshman year at Florida State. And by senior year, I won the national championships.
You won the national championships. 2015, you win NCAA championships.
Yeah.
So, and then at the trials, you get bronze. You got third at the trials to go to your first Olympics in Rio. How cool was that experience?
Yeah, that was pretty incredible. I was not one of those little girls who grew up dreaming of going to the Olympics or being a professional athlete, much less a professional runner. I didn't even know that you could be a professional runner and do that as a job. I was like, that's a thing that you can do. So I guess I went to the Olympics with some teammates and training partners of mine who had, been that little girl who had been dreaming about this since they were 5. And I was like, oh, really? That's so interesting. I don't know. I thought maybe I loved to dance when I was growing up, and I played soccer. And I did a fair bit of modeling in high school. And so I actually thought I was going to pursue that as a career after high school or maybe after college. But I got to my senior year of college, and everyone kept asking me are you going to go to the Olympics? And at first I was saying, oh my God, no, no. What are you talking about? And then after a while I was like, I don't know, maybe I should try. And so I signed a contract as soon as I graduated and moved to Portland and started training with the team. And then a year later I was trying to go to the Olympic Games, which is so crazy.
And you
my whole family was there, and ended up making the team.
And then you get 8th in the finals.
Yeah, I made the finals. That was pretty much my goal going in, was you have to run the prelim in order to race in the finals, and the finals are where they hand out the medals. And while I really didn't have a chance of getting a medal, I just wanted to be in the race. I wanted to the prelims feel like such a that's not the real race. You don't get a medal for winning the prelim. You just get to go to the final. So I just wanted to be in the final. Where they were giving out the medals, knowing that I really didn't stand a chance of earning a medal. But I felt like 8th was a respectable, first Olympic Games. I was the second American to finish. And it was as soon as I got done, I remember thinking, I really thought going in, okay, I want to make an Olympic team. And then once I do that, like check the box, cool, did it. And then I'll like go on, figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. But after I made the team and went to Rio, I was hooked. I was like, 4 more years, where's it going to be next time? I want to go, I want to do this again. Like I was definitely hooked. So then I was like, oh, okay, now I'm a professional runner. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and I started taking it more seriously and building a brand and, you know, building a website and thinking about myself as a business and like as, you know, a role model and just taking the whole thing more seriously after that, after I realized like, oh, I'm going to be doing this for a while.
Yeah, what I really enjoy is when I look at your, that when you go to steeple finals and you PR in the finals. I mean, that's, you go 9:21:10 and you PR in the finals. It shows that you know how to step up when the lights are brightest, because that's when it's easy for people to sort of shrink and disappear when they're up against the best in the world. All you can do is say, I had my best race ever and they were faster. And you can walk away from there with a big smile on your face.
Totally. Yeah, I think that is a really good lesson. And one thing I've learned over the years, just like I think sport is a really interesting way to get to know yourself and, you know, just like learn about yourself. And one thing I learned, have learned over the years is that I like a little bit of pressure. I like the performance aspect. My coach at Florida State used to always tease me that like, I'm just not a workout queen. I'm not a time trialer. You know, when we used to like try and do every year, we'd try and do a mile time trial in the steeple when I was at Florida State. Maybe like a month before nationals, do an all-out mile with 4 hurdles and water pit on every lap, and see if I could break 5 minutes in the mile over hurdles and water pit. And I did, and I would do it, but she always felt like I could run faster, but since it was just me out there running and her on the stopwatch, I don't know, I could just never like
there's no medals
that amped up for it. Like that was the point, you know, like not that excited. I'm more motivated with like lights and a crowd and like trying to beat people. Like if there's someone in front of me, you know, I don't know. I'm a super competitive person. My siblings will tell you, my family will tell you I'm very competitive. Board games and track and everything.
Doesn't matter.
So yeah, I think I just enjoy that competition. Of course, like with that like pressure, definitely sometimes it can feel, you know, like suffocating or feel like I'm so nervous that I can't perform to my potential because I just like I'm exhausted by like, you know, getting myself so nervous. And I definitely struggle with that too. So I'm not saying like I never, you know, get overwhelmed or underperform because of the pressure, but I do appreciate a bit of pressure. I think I perform better that way.
Well, you know, I think a lot of us, it's hard to just go out and do a workout when I go on race day and there's all these other people and they're giving out medals and you're getting t-shirts and food. And it's an event. There's something fun about it. You're doing a time trial on the track and they're not giving you and there's no bagel, there's no t-shirt. What the hell? Why waste your time?
It's hard. I mean, it hurts. You have to have a reason to do it. I think even just on a day-to-day basis, people ask me, you know, all the time about like motivation. How do you get the motivation to like get up and do your training every day? And I always say like, it's so much easier to do it with other people and to have like, or to build in some kind of reward. Like you can't expect yourself just day in and day out to like wake up and feel motivated every day, like just on your own, be like, whoa, I can't wait to go run for an hour and a half today. Like maybe some days, but like likely not most days. And so you have to build in things that are going to help you get there, whether that's like meeting your running buddy at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. And you know that if, you know, you don't show up, like they're going to be waiting for you, you're going to let them down. So even just something like that to motivate yourself, or like if I complete all my workouts this week, you know, I can have donuts on Sunday, like anything that like makes you feel like you're working towards something. If you're just doing it just because you're like, I'm going to run an hour and a half, I don't know, you need something, even on a day-to-day basis, to make you get excited about it. And that can be different for everyone, but can be really helpful.
So when you were training towards 2020, you get the obviously you you get to the Olympic finals. Now it's all right. I've been here. I've seen the Olympics. Now I want to get a medal. And if I'm going to go and be on the podium somewhere, I don't really want to be looking up at anybody. So your mentality changes from, I just want to get to Rio, to, I want to go to Tokyo. I want to medal. If I'm going to medal, I want to be at the top of the podium. I want to hear the anthem. I want to see my flag, all that type of stuff. But injuries, and then the delay of a year. If the games happened in 20, like they were supposed to, would you have been healthier?
I mean, I was healthy in 2020. My team went to a training camp. We kind of did our own little like COVID training camp in Park City. And then we came down. I was part of a pretty large team. So we ended up just coming back down to sea level and then racing each other. We put on these like little intra-squad races. That's when I did that 15-10 5K.
Right.
Put on a 4x1500 relay.
Yeah.
Set a world record in the 4x1500.
Yeah.
Which was really fun. I ran an open 50, actually ran an open 800 at one of those meets. We did some 4x400s, which was really fun. We were just like racing, each other and just trying to, we broadcasted them to try and entertain people. And we had a really great summer. But then I think what may have happened was like just kind of overdid it over that year and like the next year. Because then in the spring of 2021, I had this like foot issue that was kind of lingering, and it kind of just exploded in the spring of 2021. And I could not stay on my feet. I just kept having to, I would kind of, okay, I'm going to, take time off, and then I would go back up, and then it would just kind of, implode again. And so I ended up having to call it like the week of the trials. I was really in a spot where I just was refusing to read the writing on the wall that like it was not going to happen, but I just refused to give up until the last second. I was like, if there's any chance that this thing could turn around, and maybe it starts feeling better, you never know. And I was determined not to give up until it was like absolutely impossible for me to get out there. So the week of the trials, I had to record, I didn't have to, but I decided to record a video to my followers to explain like what was going on. I had kind of like been semi-open about like dealing with an injury and that things weren't going great, and people kind of knew that I was banged up, but I don't think anyone knew like how bad it was. And because I was just trying to like, just power through. So I just recorded this like very emotional video saying, I've tried so hard, I've tried everything, I've done all this therapy, and like it's just not going to happen for me this year. It's been 5 years since Rio. I've been looking forward to this, but I can't even run right now, much less put on spikes and jump over hurdles in a water pit. Like it's not going to happen
against the best in the world.
Right.
You're not doing a time trial.
Team USA is no joke to make the team is really hard. So that was super tough. Luckily that year I'd also signed with a new sponsor, Lululemon, and that timing just ended up working out so well because they really treat all their ambassadors as like whole human beings, and really put us as humans first instead of like treating us like a lot of brands just you think you're a results machine and just want they just want the result every time, and if it doesn't happen there's a lot of repercussions. So luckily Lululemon stood by me, and they were just like, we're just sad that you're sad, like we know how much you wanted this and we wanted it for you, but we still think you're a great ambassador for us, and we're happy with the work that you've done to help them launch a shoe that year. They were just getting into footwear. And so, I mean, that was definitely the bright spot, was that I felt like my goal of going to the Olympics in Tokyo was not going to be able to happen, but I could still like have this life as a professional runner that I was, now I'm obsessed with. I love doing it. And I wasn't going to get that taken away. I could keep, getting the support I need to get healthy and keep working on my goals and, keep being the role model that I was trying to be for young girls. And that wasn't all getting swept away. So that was definitely a big bright spot, and just I think really good timing that I had made that switch from, I was working with Nike and with a team that was in Portland. I made the switch to Lululemon and started training differently. So that ended up working out well. And and then last year I got injured again. I broke my foot during the prelims at USA's in the steeplechase.
Oh,
Over the second to last water pit, I fractured my foot, and I finished the race because adrenaline is like the best drug ever. And so I didn't really feel it that much. I hurt, but I was like able to run and jump for another lap and a half. And then as soon as the race ended, I walked towards like to get underneath the track, and all of a sudden I was like, I can't put weight on my foot. I don't know why that is. And so I made the final, I qualified for the final, but I didn't get to race a couple days later because my foot totally just like,
oh my God.
ballooned up, and I was on crutches and stuff. So the injuries have not completely subsided, but I'm happy to report that 7 months of triathlon training has done the body well, and I have not had any forced days off due to injury ever since I started training like a triathlete. So I think there's something to that. And that's definitely, a bright spot.
What's fascinating about that is you look at Chelsea Sodaro, who just won the Ironman World Championship. She ran at Berkeley, had I think 6 stress fractures.
Yeah.
Start training as a triathlete, or start doing the swimming and cycling, and all of a sudden running as well, and running in free because of the balance of swim and cycle. Have you found that by adding in the swimming and cycling that you haven't really lost anything in running, and maybe you're running a little less?
Yeah, I'm definitely running less. I actually, with my new coach and coaches, actually a couple coaches, I don't even know how many miles a week I'm running, which is probably, I just don't want to know, probably for the best, because I know I'm running less, and I'm trying to just embrace like how I used to train. I was trying to run 80 miles a week because that's what the girls I was competing against were doing. And I thought that's what I needed to do. It's hard to, just really go all in on. For me, that doesn't work. Like, I've tried that model many times, and each time I end up injured. So like, let's not just keep doing the same thing. Definition of insanity, right? So keep doing the same thing over and over with the same result. So I'm trying something else, but it's definitely, I'm not immune to like the comparison game where you're like, well, I'm doing this and they're doing that. Am I doing enough? And, is this the right thing? It's so hard as an athlete not to do that. But I do have complete trust and faith in my team that they have got, they've got my back. They can kind of do the more scientific like algorithms of all the training, and I can just like not think about it, and just whatever shows up on Training Peaks, I execute as to the best of my ability that day. And we are in constant communication about how my body's feeling and how I'm recovering. And I wear Whoop every day, so my coaches have access to all my body data, and they can see how I'm responding to training. And that's really how, we build training moving forward. It's not based on what I've done in the past or what my competitors are doing. It's really based on what my body needs, and how, number one priority, how to stay on my feet and not have to take stuff. And just knowing that the one thing that I think I was always missing was just training, because I would train so hard and then break and have to take a couple months off and cross train. And then as soon as I could run again, we'd be like training hard again, and then repeat the cycle.
Get injured again.
So, yeah. So the consistency is something I feel like I've really been missing. And honestly, like on the mental health side of things, that roller coaster is horrible. It is not fun. No. It's super not healthy, and it makes you just like constantly in fear of the next injury. I would get to the point where I'd be like afraid of running, because running seemed to be in my mind like what always caused the next, like setback. And so that's not healthy either. Like, I should love running. Running is what I love to do. So I think this is healthier for my body and healthier for my mind too.
So with this next Olympic cycle, we got 2024, will it be steeple? Will it be triathlon? Will it be both? What are you thinking?
Yeah.
It's nice to have those options.
It is awesome. Yes. So what happened basically was after the summer, or like last summer, June or July of 2022, When I fractured my foot at USA's, I was so frustrated, and I was like, I'm here again, like back in the same spot, just frustrated with like feeling like I really tried to avoid overtraining this time, and we were dialing back the running, and I'm, still hurt. And so I basically called up a friend who works at the USOPC, and I was like, I'm so pissed, like I can't do this anymore. I'm freaking done with ending up at nationals injured. Like I can't do it anymore. And he was like, no, like don't give up, you're not done. And I was like, oh no, I'm not giving up. I'm not done being an athlete. I'm just ready to finally explore this triathlon thing. Like I've always kind of joked about it, but I'm like, I'm serious this time. Like I want to see what it's all about. And he was like, oh yeah, you would be great at that. Like I'll introduce you. It was so funny. He thought I was like saying that I wanted to retire, and I was like, oh no, I'm still very much the competitor that I always was. I just have to figure out how to compete. Like right now, I'm not competing, right? Because I'm always injured. So I have to figure out how I can compete. So I, got on the phone with USA Triathlon, and basically they gave me the rundown of like how it works to qualify for the team in triathlon, which is very different than how you qualify for the team in track. In track, for anyone who doesn't know that process, it's basically just like one race. You, just like in the Olympics, you do a prelim and a final at US Nationals in July. It's usually end of June or beginning of July. And the top three make the team. So it's like one race, one and done.
Pretty black and white. It's hard to complain, right?
So black and white. It's very simple. And they host it like 5 weeks or 6 weeks before the game. So they make sure everyone's like fit and ready to go. And that's it. If you fall, or if you're in the wrong part of your menstrual cycle during that race, or if you're sick or anything, it's like, well, try again in 4 years. So it's kind of brutal. Yeah, it's kind of brutal, but it's a very competitive. It's so, making Team USA track and field is so competitive that I think that's really the only way that they can do it, where it's so fair. Like it's just like, that's what it is, and no favoritism, like whatever. So anyway, they told me how it works in triathlon, and I was like, oh, like, so do I, like, can I start now? Like it's summer of 2022. And they were like, ooh, no. Like,
you got to you have to become a pro. Then you have to get points to get to a race. Then you have to be, there's people in front of you who want to do that race. So you can't do that one. There's a lot.
A lot. Yeah. And I hadn't even done I'd never done a triathlon at all. And I hadn't even started training for a triathlon. Had never like talked to a triathlon coach. I had never like done triathlon workouts. Like I really like I never had a swimming coach. I've been taught how to swim by like lifeguards at the pool who give me tips, So yeah, they were just like, we love you and we think you're going to be good at triathlon, but like, you're not going to make the team in 24. And I was like, okay, well, thank you for your honesty. But anyway, so I was like, okay, when I got that news that making the team for 2024 was just like not a possibility, I was like, okay, well, in all fairness, like to be honest, I'm not quite done with track. Like I got frustrated, I got annoyed, from being injured again last summer, but in my heart, I'm like, I still want one more chance at making a team in track. So maybe this works out okay. I'll start kind of exploring the triathlon stuff, and maybe I can use the triathlon training to help me stay healthy for running, which I've seen. Yep. Still try and make the team again in 2024 in track and steeple. But then in the fall of 24, when I originally kind of had planned on retiring, because I'll be 32.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, then I guess I'll be 31. But I was like, okay, I was probably going to have to retire from steeplechase then anyway, just because, so I was like, okay, well, but maybe I can have a whole second career in triathlon.
Look at Chelsea.
At the later stage. Yeah. So I was like, that's actually like amazing, because I really feel like I love working out. I love being a professional athlete. I'm not feeling burnt out on that. but I'm just reaching the end of the road with steeple just as a time, time constraint with age and stuff. So I'm like, that could actually be like the perfect, next phase of my career. So that really gets me excited. And I feel like I have plenty of time, especially if I'm going to get into like long course eventually, which I could see myself doing, then I feel like I have
Absolutely.
plenty of time. So yeah,
It's
that's like kind of the
yeah.
overarching plan.
Now, when you were running with Bowerman Track Club, Gwen Jorgensen was part of that team, right?
Yeah,
Won the gold in the Olympic triathlon. At that
that's
point,
right.
did you ever talk to her about triathlon, or was it that was a little too early?
Yeah, everyone asked me that. I mean, I did ask her a lot about triathlon because I was curious, just, that was her, I mean, her world. And she came to our world and was learning all this stuff about like to train like a track athlete and like a marathoner. I was also around when she had Stanley, and I
Yes.
would go over to her house when Stanley was first born, and just, like being there around that process with her was really interesting to watch her become a mom and then get back into training, and how she was handling all of that, which was super inspiring.
Yep.
But I didn't at that time, I was still not thinking like triathlon. I have one of my best friends actually did triathlons in college and a little bit after college. And she was the one who was like, she would see my numbers on the bike because I was doing Peloton
Yes.
for like cross training. And she would see, because she also did Peloton, she would see my numbers. She would see a ride that I did or whatever. And she'd be like, girl, like, you are so good on the bike. Like, your numbers are unreal. And like, star asterisk, we don't know how accurate the Peloton really is, right? So like, maybe who knows if those were like real, but I am strong on the bike, so it couldn't be that far off. But so she was, my friend Brooke was really the one who said like, if you ever wanted to, you'd be killer at triathlon. Like, I think, you know, you should try it. And she knows me really well. She's one of my best friends. So I was like, when I thought about switching, I told her, I said, I'm gonna call USA Triathlon. I'm like interested in this. And she was psyched. She was like, you're gonna love it. She was like super excited. And that's really like the reaction I've had from so many people in the triathlon community, like so welcoming, so excited that
Yes.
I'm like making the journey over, and just like a lot of positive reaction, which has been so nice.
So, as somebody who has embraced social media, and you've done a great job on that, the cool part
Thank
is
you.
a lot of stuff you guys do as professional athletes can be pretty selfish, right? You run, you come home, you get a massage, you do weights.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that this interaction with your community is a real positive because you've got people who are getting off the couch because they're reading about you, right? They feel like they know you, and now they're
Yeah.
changing their life through fitness because of you. Is that
Yeah.
is how important is that to you?
It's so cool. It's funny you say that because I actually, just a few weeks ago, I'm training in LA right now, and I was walking my dog, over in Venice Beach, and this like girl ran by on the bike path, and I could tell she like looked at me, like
You
with
know,
the look. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I didn't know if I should like wave at her, because what if she was looking at someone behind?
yeah,
And then, but she ran past me, and then she stopped and she circled back, and you could tell she was like, I have to say hi. So she came over, she's like, I'm sorry, like, I just have to say hi. Like, I'm a big fan. I follow you on Instagram. I was like, oh, like, nice to meet you, whatever. And she said she started running just like 4 months ago because of me. Like, she was like, I
yes.
started running because of you, and I signed up for the LA Marathon. And I was like, what? Like, you signed up for a marathon because of me? I don't even run the marathon.
I'm running a 5K, and
But
that
that
seems like a
is
long way.
yeah. But that is the juice for me. I like love that. I love being able to
Yes.
feel like, even though it is so selfish, and I think about myself constantly, I'm always thinking about, how do I feel? What do I need? And,
Yeah.
fueling myself and getting my legs recovered, and where my mental space is, doing my breathing, doing my stretching, blah, 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 like all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
But then, yeah, when I get messages from, girls, I have an email that's associated with my website. And so I get emails from girls who are like, I saw that you posted about eating donuts last week, and like that was just so refreshing to see that like you treat yourself, with a donut every now and again, and like that you're a professional athlete and you think it's okay to do that. Like makes me feel normal that like I also do that. And I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, like that's so cool. I don't know. I think there's so many downsides to social media and so much of like the comparison, like the negative comparison that can happen there where, everyone's putting their best stuff on social media. And so you never see their bad days, you never see them when they're struggling or, in
Right.
tears after a workout. You're only seeing the good stuff and everything seems great. And so if you're a younger person or anyone of any age looking at someone like that, you just think, oh, like that's so good for them. Like their life is so great. It's so perfect. And it can be so disheartening. But so there's definitely, not to minimize the downsides of social media, but I think also there's a space to have community and create connection in ways
Absolutely.
that make people feel more seen and,
Mhm.
just more included maybe, or feel like, okay, what I'm doing is normal too. Like whether I'm talking about training or recovery or biking, like I've created so many connections with people who are like, I love biking, like because they see me on the bike like with this huge smile on my face
Yeah.
and they're like, I love biking too. So yeah, I think that's really what at the end of the day what motivates me to like keep doing this, because it's a grind. Training is definitely a grind. But I think the motivation for me now is, yeah, that community of people who I feel like I can like do something makes a difference.
What's interesting is when you talk about doing the steeple, you go to the track, all the stuff is set up. When you're a triathlete, okay, running shoes, bike, wheels, transitions, booties.
Oh
There's
my
so
gosh.
much. It's coming from track. You must be like, wait a second,
It is
I travel, I
so
got my
much.
shoes. That's it.
I cannot believe how much stuff. I'll tell you, one of the key workouts that I had leading up to Tritonman, I was going to do a run off the bike. It was actually multiple. I was going to do like a 10-minute tempo on the bike, hop
Yeah.
off, do T2, get my shoes on, go do a mile at tempo, come back, get back on my bike, 10 minutes. I was going back and forth, and I had never done that before. And so I wanted to have this like stretch of road that was up past Malibu, to that was going to be my perfect spot. I knew that road and it was going to be safe, and that it was like pretty flat.
Yeah, yeah.
Triton Man was going to be flat. It's like whole thing, and you need a lot of stuff to do that. Like I got my tri slide, the spray that I put in my shoes to like lube up my shoes. You got to have your rubber bands to do your flying mounts. I have all this crap, and I get my whole car, situated, and I got my clothing picked out and all that stuff, and I'm ready to drive an hour, 50-minute drive to get up to where I'm going to go. I kid you not, I get there and my bike's on the top of the car, everything. I got my running shoes, got my bike shoes. I get there and I forgot my flipping helmet. I didn't have my helmet for my bike, and I'm out in the middle of nowhere. There's not even a Walmart like nearby, nothing. And so I called my coach. I was like, "You're not gonna believe this. I forgot my helmet. I can't ride on the Pacific Coast Highway without a
No.
helmet on." Like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to turn around. And then at that point, my fueling is all off because I
Right.
have to turn
Timing.
around and get my helmet. And I'm like, now I'm hungry. So then I'm like, oh, I have to eat some more. But then it
Then you have to
such a
get off the
mess.
bike and run. You got food in your belly. You got, yeah.
I was so pissed. And my coach was just like, this happens, like three sport life. Like you're gonna forget something, it
Uh,
happens all the time. But it is
yeah.
a lot. There's a lot of details. And it's just also very time consuming, right? It's like
Right.
I don't know how people have a normal job and training for a triathlon.
It's crazy. But the cool part
Yeah.
is what
Yeah.
I think you're going to love is just the camaraderie among the pros, because they all know whoever wins a race is the person who wins. There's not that
Yeah.
sort of tension that you see in some of the other sports. Or psych outs. It's like, hey, I'm going to do my race. You do your race. We'll toast each other at the finish line. I just think there's a
Yeah.
different sorority and fraternity of athletes involved with our sport.
I actually found that to be so, so true at Tritonman, and it was something I wasn't expecting. But there was few women who were in my race who had already earned their pro card.
Yeah.
And they, all three of them, just like so helpful, took me under their wing and like let me ask all my questions and rode the course with me the day before, and like showed me, okay, this is the transition thing, and were asking me like, are you good? Do you need anything? And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so nice, because my coach wasn't there, so I was there with my fiance, who he's actually done a triathlon, but like not competitively, just for funsies. And so there's all these like transition things, especially in a sprint where you're trying to maximize the transition zone and stuff. So they were just so nice and made me feel like just so much more relaxed, that I had that like support there if I had questions, or was what about this at the last minute or something, I knew I could ask them. It was so nice. Yeah,
you're gonna love it in this sport, and it's cool that you can use the cross training for steeple for 2024, and then in the meantime maybe jump, now that you're a pro, you win your first race, so now you got a pro card, you can go down to Daytona and do Clash Daytona in December, right? And ride on the speedway and do some of these other fun events. Just see what you like and what you don't like.
Totally. Yeah, I'm gonna everyone kept asking me when my next race was gonna be, and I was like, well, so I am gonna focus on track this summer. I'm not gonna do another triathlon right away, but I do plan on doing a triathlon or two like in the fall or winter, my off season for track. So, and I'm already excited about my next one, because I had so much fun in the first one.
Good for you. And how did a lot of times people's first race, you can train for it, but getting off the bike and running when your legs feel like cement. What was early on in the run? How did your legs feel?
I think I was most nervous about the swim, and how that was going to go. And I was a minute and a half behind the leaders when I got out of the water. So rightfully worried, because you were
18th out of the water. That's all right. First time.
That's fine. But but then the next thing I was most worried about was just how everyone said, oh, as soon as you like get your shoes on and start running, you're just going to crush. Like, you're going to be so great. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I've never run hard after swimming my butt off and then biking my butt off. Like, I only did that one brick workout where I did, bike run, 3 rounds of that. And I felt okay. Like, I felt okay doing that. I was running like 5:20 pace off the bike and feeling like it took me like 3 minutes to like find my rhythm, after biking, which I think is pretty like normal. But again, like not after swimming for 11 minutes as hard as I could, I just didn't know how there was a big question mark in my mind, how that was going to feel. But once I got my shoes on and I started running, I did, at first you feel awkward. You just feel like a baby deer. You're like, no, what is going on? Especially because the first little run part we did was in grass. So the grass is like, it's more uneven and it doesn't spring you up as much as like pavement does. And so my fiance Kevin yelled at me. I think he said 17th, you're in 17th place, like coming out of T2. And so in my head, I was like, oof, I got some work to do.
5K, you got to go past 16 people.
I was like, I got some work to do. Because my ultimate goal, I wanted to win. I knew that I needed to be top 3 amateurs to get my pro card, but like, I was trying to win, And so I was like, oh gosh, I got some work to do. But I just started picking people off like crazy. And I felt like I was running like conservatively hard. Like I felt like I was running pretty smart and I was trying to catch people, but I wasn't like, you get the baton in a 4 by mile and you're just like sprinting. I wasn't doing that. I was like trying to, run smart. But I honestly just felt like I was passing people like crazy. I was like, whoa, like I'm just like picking them off like no problem. And so then I started gaining confidence, right? You're like, okay, like I can do this. And then halfway through the second lap, I saw the bike pacer and the girl who was running behind her. And I was like, wait, I think I'm at the front. I think I'm here. Yeah. And it was funny. I had a little interaction with the woman who was in first place because I was like, no way that I'm already at the front. Like I was surprised. And I said, I was like, I'm sorry to ask you this, but are you the leader?
Excuse me. Were you the leader? Should I say, are you, or were you the leader?
So I'm sorry to ask you this, but like, are you the leader? And she was like, yeah. And then she goes, wait, are you the Olympian?
Yes, I am.
Like, yeah.
Which is why I'm leaving right now. I'm gone.
And I laughed. I kind of laughed and said, yeah. And then she was like, oh, geez. And I was like, come with me. Like, come run, like I'm going around you, but like latch on to me, like run with me. Because I felt like, like it's better to run with someone else. But I don't think she was able to, because I couldn't feel her after that. And then I just ran the second half of the race all by myself. And I started to doubt myself, like, am I like stupid? Like, am I gonna blow up here and I have no idea? Like, am I about to hit a wall or something? Like, I feel totally fine, but I'm crushing and I'm like confused. Like, I'm like waiting for something to happen where I'm gonna be like, oh, you're like, that's why I felt so good or something.
Did I miss a turn? Why am I so
exactly,
far in front?
Or am I on the second lap? Maybe this is the first lap. Maybe I really have 2 laps to go. I don't know. I was just like second guessing myself. And then I remembered right before the finish line, I remembered that I had to serve a penalty because I made such a rookie mistake and I touched my bike coming off of the swim without putting my helmet on. I took it off of the stand, and then I was like, oh shoot, my helmet. And so then I put my helmet on, and you're not allowed to handle your bike, obviously, before you put a helmet on. So I knew at the time that I was going to have to serve a penalty for that. If they saw me, I should have to serve a penalty. And so right before the finish line, I hadn't noticed the penalty box. I knew where it was supposed to be, but I was like so focused on getting to the front that I didn't even see it on the first 2 laps. And so on the third lap, right before the finish, I saw the tent and I was like, oh, that's the penalty box. And then I went, oh my gosh, I have a penalty. Like I remembered. And then I looked at the board where they write it down, and sure enough, it said 130 and it had an E next to it, which I don't know if that even stood for, but I knew I was 130. So I was like, that's me. And so I pulled over and stood in the penalty box for 10 seconds and then got my name down. And then 10 seconds goes by so fast. He was like, you're free, go. And I ran out of there and then ran to the finish, which was hilarious because a penalty box does not exist in track and field.
Track and field, Imagine if they had a penalty box. If they had a penalty box by the water jump. If you were penalized for some of the chaotic things you do with elbows and jumping on people. No, that's all encouraged. There's no penalty box. Exactly.
Yeah, and I've actually been disqualified in a steeplechase race before. And looking back, I wish there was a penalty box, because if I could have just done a penalty instead of being disqualified, I would rather that, right?
What was your penalty for?
It was so silly, but I was in at World Championships, actually. It's kind of a sad story, but I was in World Championships in London in 2017, and I was running the prelim. I was in the shape of my life and running the prelim, and on the inside of the water pit, so the water pit's on the inside of the track. For anyone who's not familiar with, like, you don't run on lane 1, you have to run like on the inside of lane 1 is where the water pit is. So every lap you cut in, basically. You cut in, you jump over the water pit, and then you have to like get back onto lane 1 right at like the corner where at the beginning of the straightaway.
Right.
And so most tracks have a rail on the inside of the track there. And so, my dog's gonna bark. Yeah, you're good. It's just the FedEx. Most tracks have a rail there that keep you from, just like the normal rail that goes on the inside of the track. The track in London had cones instead of a rail, and the cones were spread apart, like a couple feet apart or whatever. And I got jostled coming out of the water pit because they were just, like you're saying, elbows and all this stuff.
Yep.
And half of my foot landed on half of that. The white line is like,
oh my God,
maybe 3 inches thick, and my foot hit like 1.5 inches of that white line. I didn't step over it, but I stepped on it, half of the white line. And one of the on-field officials called it as
DQ.
as a DQ. And so I finished the race and I qualified for the final, no problem, felt amazing, came off the track. I was doing interviews, like that was so fun. We had a really fast last like 600 and I raced with the Kenyans and, felt so good and da, da, da. And then someone was like, did you know that you're listed as disqualified? And I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't do anything wrong. Like that. Well, that's a mistake. Like, clearly we'll get it sorted out. I didn't do anything wrong. But it's really hard to question an on-field official. They do not like to retract their call, right? They really don't like to do that. And so they looked back at the footage and they decided that half of my foot was on half of the white line. And that was the end of that. So I got disqualified and didn't get to run in the finals 2 days later.
So we need to bring
Bad
penalty
times.
tent to steeple is what we need to do.
Yeah.
Because you would have taken your 5 seconds and made it up and at least
exactly
go to the finals. It would have been
exactly
no problem.
That would have been great. Yeah.
So Colleen, when you're doing steeple, you're going 9 minutes. This triathlon thing was an hour 5 for a quote unquote sprint. Did it feel like a sprint? That's a long ass way.
Yeah, that's the longest race I've ever competed in. And so I was like worried about even like fueling and stuff like that, because I was thinking like I'm gonna, run out of fuel. Like that's such a long way to go. And yeah, triathletes like laugh at me saying that because like in triathlon world, that's like so short.
It's a pimple. It's like a little thing. It's it's an appetizer.
Like, oh, you're so cute.
Love it. Colleen.
Yeah, it was a long race for me.
What a treat to get to chat with you. And it really is wonderful to have you in our sport. I think you're going to love it. And it's going to be great because you know what? You're a rookie. You're just getting going. You've got another decade at least to do this stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to be like a rookie again. I'm enjoying that.
So imagine 2028, right? LA Olympics, going for your hopefully 3rd Olympics at that point, 2 as a steeple, and then 2028 and triathlon. That's certainly not out of the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, I hope so. And I spend a lot of time in LA now and I love the city. It's where I want to live for the rest of my life. So to have the Olympics here, I think would be really special.
Love it. Colleen, thank you for taking so much time and chatting. It's again a pleasure to have you in the sport, and love your personality and love just the way you interact with all the folks on Instagram. You've brought a lot of attention to our world that really has not received that before. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. That's really sweet. I really appreciate the support. And thanks for having me on.
All right. Colleen Quigley has been our guest again. Breakfast with Bob, our Not Quite Kona edition. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. See ya.